Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Eljay Johnsen Show. This show airs every Saturday at 4 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Oh, yes, I can say it now. Standard Time. We're back in Standard. If you have
Always
any
standard.
questions over the week for either myself or my guest, make sure to email those in at ljjohnson@gmail.com. And if you have any questions during the show, go ahead and tweet them live at the LJ Johnson. I will be paying attention to that. We didn't get any emails this week. That's fine. I'm hurt, but I'm fine. So we will monitor that another time. All right, I'm very excited for my next guest because he is just genuinely such an awesome fellow. Legend foretold that one man, while he was a child, built his childhood home out of Tootsie Rolls. This is, in fact, how Lincoln Logs came to be. He grew up in this home before eating it and moving out. I am, of course, talking about the renowned mockist and, as I previously mentioned, genuinely good guy and host of the Gearbox podcast, Brendan, also known as Shadowgear6335. How are you doing today?
You know, the best part about living in a house of Tootsie Rolls is like the smell. So if you're new to the household, you walk in, you're like, what is this smell? Oh my God. But as time grows on, you grow to get used to it. And I gotta lie, I gotta lie. I gotta tell the truth. Every time I think of Tootsie Rolls, I think of my good old home.
Oh, that's good. That is very pleasant to
Yeah.
know. I love Tootsie Rolls. Like
I can't
they're
eat them that so much anymore with my teeth, but they
oh
were a bad thing to get into. I had a sweet tooth when I was younger, real bad.
yeah, no, I surprisingly I does it count if it's for fruit? Because like I love fruit a lot.
What is your favorite fruit?
Mangosteen.
Real? Oh, that's a dumb question. I just asked.
Don't worry, a follow up. But I actually have a banana right here because I haven't had anything to eat today. So
Ah, yes, Mr. Potassium, knocking on my door.
yeah, no. In fact, like on BZ Power, way back when I made comics, so like '07 to 2014, I had a character and his name was Fred, and his whole shtick was he was a Matoran of bananas, not plant life, just bananas. Comics Forum
I
was
can
a
get behind
crazy,
that.
crazy place.
I never got into that scene growing up in the community. I always looked at it through a glass door.
Like Thanksgiving, you see a family having a nice meal, and you're outside in the cold.
More so like the Christmas windows you see in New York City, where it's just this big display of just some craziness you don't know what's going on in
Oh
front
yeah,
or behind the screen.
that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
and all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that's
I don't
understandable.
know.
Well, to be
To
fair,
give a proper yes.
yeah, no, to be perfectly fair, I actually want to get into the past. Speaking of, my upbringing in the community. But for those unaware, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself and let us know what you do.
So yes, hello. As stated prior, my name is Brendan, otherwise known as Shadowgear6335 on the internet. I have been mocking for a while, like since I was like maybe 13, 14, but I haven't started really posting on the internet probably a decade ago now. I started posting originally on mockpages.com, which is not the best website to use, mostly because it's outdated now. But I started posting there, and then a couple of years later, I moved on over to the BioTube community, which was, I'd say, new and fresh at the time. It was like 2000, late 2008 to 2009. It was certainly interesting. It was a lot of like stop motions and like really building very simple builds at the time, but like it was a very fun community. It was great because you had such as like like message boards or brick shelf, right, or like even mock pages, or
Mhm.
like it was fun to have those other communities. But I think I dug my heels into the ground of BioTube, and even though I don't do it all that much anymore, it is a big part of my history, whether it be good or bad for those who are in the know.
Interesting. Now, that is actually something I wanted to talk to you about today. Mocking, of course, and we'll do that first. And then I want to get into BioTube because that is another side of the Bionicle community, and I guess the grander, Lego community outside of BioTube that I'm just completely unfamiliar with. But
Hmm.
like with the first episode we did of this with Molly, let's talk about mocking a bit because you've been mocking goodness, I'm sure a long time online, but I'm certain even longer prior to that. So how did you get into just, of course, general Lego, Bionicle, and mocking and posting those mocks online?
Okay, this is an hour show, right?
Yep,
Let's go.
we're good. We got time.
Um, I can try to give. So I was a fan of Lego, fan of the Lego. I was a fan of Lego from early at a young age. A team back when it was underwater, for those who are in the know.
Ooh.
Um, I did that, and I got into Bionicle, the ground floor. I started with the Mata and then worked my way up. Got out of Bionicle when the Hordika came out because I thought they were ugly, and I still think they're ugly. Missed all of 2006. Didn't pick up a single set during that time. And that may be for better or for worse, even though people still say, like, you missed out on Brutaka. And I'm like, there are worse things in life that I miss out on, whatever. Or best things, rather, whatever. Then I got back into collecting Bionicle again when the Mari came out. Well, that's not true. I got some Baraki as well. They were awesome sets, and I think to this day is like one of the best waves of Bionicle, if not the best. The Mari and the Baraki were the best year of Bionicle, I think, the more I think about it, followed by the Mectru. I did that, and then I started experimenting, combining a lot of the sets and making my own stuff, which looked like garbage. I decided to make my own character, and it was, this is such a weird fact that I keep going on, because if you look on the screen, you see this character named Shadow. This character was made in 2007 as a Toa of Nightmares made out of black and Keto orange parts. For those who are not Keto orange, it's medium orange. Is that what it's actually called?
I have no idea what the actual name for Lego colors are, so I just call it Keto Orange.
Yeah. For those who aren't know, Keto orange is the color of Kitungu, who was the first Bionicle character to really use that particular color of yellow, hence why it's called Keto orange.
Yeah.
But yeah, I made that character. He's an edgelord. He was an edgelord, still is. I made him and made a team for him and a whole bunch of other characters. And I had I think maybe like 20, 30 mocks built before I posted them online. And then I was just scrubbing around mock pages, which for those who aren't know, mock pages, a website. I was going to say was because I think it's dead, but it kind of is. Or kind of isn't. I don't know.
It's still around.
It's a website where people can post mocks, and there's a community, like kind of like a message board thing they added on in like 2009. And you can comment on stuff, and it was a small little community, and there's some people from that community I still know today and still speak with. And it was fun. Like, it was one of those things where it's like video of like, oh, I'm gonna post my video, is anyone gonna watch it? And you see the one little view and you're like, oh man, someone looked at this. It was amazing at the time. One morning, and like, 100 people looked at this one thing. Oh man. And that was great. And then I moved on to the BioTube. Getting on to your actual question, potatoes, like, what is BioTube, or those who don't know, the Bionicle YouTube community? Bad camcorder when I was young, and made really dumb videos with it, and decided to put them on the internet. You know, Bionicle was my main interest outside of video games at the time. I put them up there, and I probably also to this day, my name, Shadowgear6335, I made up on a whim because I thought it sounded cool. So I'm stuck with that name, and I've decided to keep the name because I'm stupid. Part of the reason why I call myself Brendan, otherwise known as Shadowgear6335.
Makes sense.
Because, yeah, you know, it was a name I came up with when I was, how old am I now?
Well, what?
13, 14?
Don't you have a Shadow Gear mock? And doesn't he have a lot of gears? I'm space eating right now.
It's true. No, you're totally right. It's weird that I made a mock solely because of I had a name, and I feel like I should make a character because I have this name, right? I should have one representing this name, even though he's not technically my self-mock, but still technically is. I don't know. It's confusing. The late 2000s were a whiplash of emotions.
Yeah, they were a fascinating time, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. You know, you find a giant Matanui thing in the sand, and you have Akina dancing in a movie. It's weird.
Oh, gosh, the movie. Oh, boy.
I know.
Okay,
but
fascinating. That's an interesting kind of very summarized backstory.
I feel like I didn't answer your question, but thank you.
Oh, no, that's perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and branch off of that. So you got into mock pages, and you know, you posted your mocks there, and I think it goes without saying that you get a little more than 100 views nowadays with some of your creations. And I actually have on screen right now one of your most recent creations, which I think is quite the departure from your standard, because
Yes.
it's mostly system and technic instead of construction.
Hmm.
So I figure a good place to start with that is how does it feel having, looking back at those old mocks on mock pages and seeing how much you've really grown and expanded the way you use pieces, you use Lego, you use construction, because I believe your mock Shadow, if I'm not mistaken, recently
Yes.
had its 10-year
That
anniversary.
Yes. The I Guess I'm cute and stupid. I said his 10th anniversary, or rather his 10th birthday, was on October 16th of this year.
So
I don't know why.
how is that, looking back and just seeing how much you've expanded your abilities with mocking?
And on this question, a bit more in a broader sense, but I will answer your question to the best of my ability because I like to ramble. Um, Lego for me is weird. It's very weird, but also fantastic because I've had a lot of opportunities in my life. Cooking has been a great, like, in a time when I didn't really, was like all that. I wasn't really that socially inept. Wow, I'm batting 1,000. Uh, it was a great thing for me to do in my spare time, and it made me give me a creative outlet because I don't draw, I don't do any 3D modeling.
Hmm.
You give me a pencil, I don't know what to do with it outside of writing my own name. So it was a great creative outlet. And starting out, I was impressed with what I made. And I feel like at that time, it was probably the most pure sense of mocking I've ever had because that was during a time when I didn't post it on the internet and I didn't have other people's feedback,
Hmm.
which I feel like which is a whole other topic in general. Like
Oh yeah.
sometimes people are very afraid to post because, they're afraid of having any form of criticism or any type of feedback. And I feel like mocking in a vacuum, it's the same thing with like artists, right? Like, oh, we found all this great art of like all these famous artists, but they didn't show anything off until they died because they found all their stuff in a warehouse or like in their home
Hmm.
or whatever. And like, it could be super scary to post stuff online.
Hmm.
For me, it's been an experience, good and bad, but there's been a lot of great stuff because of it. Like my skill has improved because of feedback from the community and comparing my stuff to others and going with certain trends and stuff. Especially like now, in the past 3 or 4 years, there's been a big focus. Pretty much ever since CCBS became like to like the building style, because when it first came out with Hero Factory 2.0 in 2011.
Yeah, it's 2000. Yeah, no, it was 11.
Yeah, a lot of people were really abstinent against using it because it's like, oh, it's really simplistic. You just have a skeleton and a shell to go on top of it. You can't do anything with that. Which it's definitely been proved, especially since G2 Bionicle came out,
Oh yeah.
more with those pieces than BU anticipated, which is fantastic. It's a great style.
Hmm.
Not more of a focus on like color blocking and like, and like using certain pieces and certain techniques, and like texturing has been a big thing too, which I still have trouble working with because it's like this part is smooth, but this part is not smooth, and it's really inconsistent. What are you doing? And it's like I didn't know we were putting everything in the MoMA, guys. We don't need to grade everything.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's really interesting thinking about mocking and how it's improved for me personally, because I feel like I made really simple Anika builds, which again, for those who don't know, Anika builds are Toa Anika and Toa based on that from the Bionicle line. They're basically just recolors with different heads. But then people in like the late 2000s started focusing more on doing custom builds. Anyway, I can't really speak to other communities because I have only been in one really.
Hmm.
But it's been like making custom builds and then doing nothing but custom builds, and then it just looks bad because it's like an overtly custom. And then I feel like not until now where people start using like prefab limbs like a torsos or legs or whatever and combining those into custom designs and realizing that simplicity is kind of okay.
Yeah. Um, it does seem. I remember obviously when that was happening, when the Anika build was a bit controversial, and obviously enough, I wasn't in the mock pages community, but even on BZ Power, if you had a mock that had an Anika build, it was not hated, but it was definitely frowned upon after a certain point. because people were getting tired
Yeah.
of seeing it in sets, and they didn't like seeing it in mocks either. Did you receive any of that backlash?
Um, I want to say that I did, but I can't really pinpoint a time frame as to when. I want to say like 2010, 2011, because that's when people really started working in custom stuff.
Hmm.
And if you're using a Nika torsos, you were either using like a straight build of just like, here's a waist, here's a torso, here's some armor on top of it, boom, done.
Hmm.
Some people tried to incorporate it into as like build more stuff on top of it to kind of hide the fact that it's not a Nika torso, even though it totally is, because you can measure the width of the shoulders compared to the legs and be like, yep, that's an Nika build.
Yeah.
But there are definitely a lot of builders out there who use Nika torsos now, and it can definitely be hidden and it looks great. Such as Elira, my better half, constantly uses a Nika torsos in her builds, and you cannot tell, I cannot tell. And she surprises me all the time with it, because she's like, oh, hey, I made this big thing and uses a Nika torso. And I'm just like, man, you're using these old style parts in a really good way. And I feel like a lot more people are starting to do that nowadays, mostly because either for like nostalgic reasons of like I miss using these old parts, or just more variety, because I'm sure there are some mockers out there who don't prefer the smooth kind of like robot style.
Hmm.
But like you know what I mean, like
Oh yeah.
the smooth kind of like modern design of CCPS
Futuristic,
carries.
very there is a term for this, and I'm completely forgetting what it is. But I know what you're
Like
talking about, because there's still a lot of people who feel that the reason G2 failed was because of CCBS, which I think is that's a bit out there, personally.
I chalk that up to the marketing more so than anything.
Yeah, same.
It was gearing it towards. I think the building, I think the Jutsu sets, the Toa primarily. I think the Skull villains and the beasts were okay, but they
Hmm.
weren't the greatest. But the Toa builds, I think, especially the first wave of the Toa, I feel like were just a masterwork of combining like Bionicle style techniques mixed with like Hero Factory / CCBS builds, and having the gear function, which I still like to this day. I think they incorporated it really well.
Yeah, yeah. No,
They
I
were
agree.
they were I think the perfect encapsulation and update to really classic characters.
Yeah, yeah. No, I completely agree as well. I think that especially that first wave did a really great job of nailing the idea, nailing the concept. I have some mixed opinions on the 2016, but I totally agree, and I think that a lot of that is you can lend credence to the CCBS because it's in the name. It's a system, and with a lot of the Generation 1 styles of construction and building and sets, you're getting a new aesthetic every year. But with CCBS,
Hmm.
it follows a guideline.
Yeah.
So, and have you noticed that kind of, because CCBS, it's introduced, it's a system, and it mimics kind of Lego system building. Have you found it any easier transitioning from CCBS to general system because of that?
So in recent years, I've been messing around with making more system, like either like system integrated builds or just straight up system mocks. Because with time happens, I've said this before on my show, where I'm just like, system just appears in my home. I don't know how this keeps happening. Maybe because they're not making any more construction sets that I want to buy, so I'm just buying more Lego at some point. It's weird. Knockoffs, which is a whole other thing.
Oh, gosh.
Uh, but yeah, it has been easier, I believe. It's been I think in terms of aesthetics and looks, I feel like it can totally match up. I feel like you can mix most CCBS parts with system parts, and the smoothness of it, especially if you're using like a snot style of building where it's like, hey, everything's smooth, there's no studs, everything looks great, then
Hmm.
it could look great. Oh, I feel like there's also a conversation that people have where it's like, you shouldn't mix those two things together because they don't belong. You shouldn't mix action figure parts with system parts. When I say no, you should mix everything and everything. If you want to put Galador in this thing, you should just go and have a ball. Like I'm a bit like there's a lot of I feel like I keep. I'm sorry, I have a lot
No,
to
no,
say
you're
on
you're
things.
good. The connection's a little spotty, so but please continue. You're okay.
Oh, I do apologize. Um, Actual feed is okay.
Oh yeah, no,
Uh,
we're good.
but it's weird. I never live stream mostly because my internet is kind of garbage. I do apologize. But so the people who are more critical with like mixing different things and such, and I dip my head into communities where I'm like, oh man, Like, you should build something like this, or build it like this, or you should use exclusive Bionicle parts because Bionicle is capital B Bionicle, and you should, enjoy it for what that is, and you shouldn't be mixing it with system because that's gross. And I'm a big proponent of what you like to build, and so long as you are satisfied with it, you should just go with what you want, because end of the day, this is a hobby. You're not trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to win any contest for the most part, and you're not making money off any. Well, for the most part, you're not making any money off this. So you should just enjoy the hobby for what it is.
That's a good way of
So
looking at it.
I mean, that's my philosophy. I know there are a lot of people who differ in that regard, but
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of debate pertaining to, of course, the different types of building and whether or not online critique especially, and heck, that even goes outside of mocking itself. But that's a good philosophy because it is a lot of it is very much a hobby, and just doing it because you enjoy it is a good thing to do. Do you feel that? Because you mentioned that you're not a big proponent for mocking inside of a chamber, kind of in a bubble, and just mocking and mocking and mocking and not putting it anywhere, if I'm gathering that correctly.
well, yeah, I can see both sides of the coin, but I at this point in my life, I'm actually kind of a big proponent of maybe just mock in a vacuum and enjoy it on your own end instead of just constantly giving people updates.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
All right, so you would actually prefer. Do you? So let's say I'm a mockist. I'm not a mockist, but for the sake of discussion, I'm a mockist now.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Oh, hi.
If I want to improve my mocks, how do I go about doing it? Like, if I'm making a mock and I'm a little unhappy with how it's turning out, maybe the shoulders are a little too wide, maybe the pelvis is just not connecting with the legs and not allowing them to move properly. I've run into these issues tons of times. How do I go about learning how to overcome that? Those obstacles and roadblocks, because I don't post them online, I don't gather feedback, but I do want to learn new techniques and grow. How do I go about that, in your opinion?
So I have two answers, one small, one short. My short answer is just keep building, just keep doing it. The second answer is in that particular situation, if you're working on something and you're just running into a roadblock, which I actually have had this very same problem this afternoon before we got into the show. Um, I keep like my rule I try to incorporate now is, right, I work on a design on one particular part that I'm not satisfied with it. If I'm stuck on that part for like a half hour, I either move on to a different part of the build or I just walk away and do something else for a while. It's very much in the same way of like trying to figure out like a hard puzzle or like being
Mm-hmm.
stuck with a problem. The best thing to do is to walk away and like, maybe like pace around your house or go for a walk or like, just like do something else to occupy your mind and like let it go. And then when you come back to it, you hopefully will look at it with a fresh perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You'll feel a little bit better about it and you can just try and figure it out then. And if you do it for multiple days and you're still not satisfied with it, maybe you should just either like take apart that particular build and save the parts that you'll like for a different build later on, or you should just scrap it entirely and start fresh and
Okay.
forward. The
Interesting.
best way to improve is a Marcus. Working in a vacuum, or you're like constantly like updating your builds with like people in like chats or message boards or whatever. The best thing you to do is to keep mocking. It
Mm-hmm.
is a muscle. It is like running at the gym. It is like practice. It's like going to school and trying to get A's. It is the same process. It is you need to keep it moving. There's a momentum, and that has happened to me so many times where I have a good maybe 3 months where I'm constantly mocking, and then something else comes up in my life, and then I get distracted. I try to come back to it. All my momentum is gone,
Hmm.
and it's difficult to try and get back into that swing for me anyway. I know there's a lot of other people who creatively have different processes in which they but I try to look at mocking as an art form because to me it is, even though it's kind of weird considering the medium in which we are, creating art with. But I try to use the same practices, and I think that is certainly one I follow. Where it's like if you're having trouble with it, just kind of walk away and then come back to it, and then you work it out from there. Kind of just go with the flow.
Interesting. That's a very fascinating perspective, and I think a strong argument could be made for mocking being an art form. I think like there is a lot of debate for video games being art. I definitely think there's a strong argument there too. So mocking definitely because it's all a creative expression using those pieces.
Totally.
Okay, that's a very fascinating perspective. I'm sure a lot of budding artists, mockists would definitely appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and get a little bit into the community side of things
Oh
because I
boy.
feel at mocking
So,
there's so much we could talk about, but I am very interested in a very particular history lesson because you come from a side of the community, mock pages of course, but also BioTube that I'm
yep.
just not very familiar with. So how did you get into BioTube? What was that like? And how did that kind of grow while you were there?
So let me give you, to the best of my ability, a condensed version of my experience with BioTube, which my experience as one of, if not maybe one of the most popular people in the community during 2008 to 2011, 12, I think.
Mhm.
So as I stated earlier, I got a really bad camcorder. I put videos on the internet. And at the time in 2007, 2008, it was a lot of people putting up slideshows with like very copyrighted music, very, very at the time, kind of like here's your skillet, here's your 3 days grace, like here's everything you need for your 2008 joy. Like a lot of slideshows of people showing off their mocks, which are a lot of Nika builds, very simple. A lot of story themed videos of people with their own characters, like a subtle stop motion slideshow of pictures, and they would have text on the bottom showing what character would be speaking, which is very makes me feel very nostalgic. Very like YouTube poop style videos where people make compilations of clips and then put funny animations and such to them. It was kind of a wild west, and there wasn't really many videos of people like talking. Like it was very very quiet.
Mhm.
I did the same. Like I did a lot of slideshows, a lot of stop motions and such. I made my own little dumb story series, which there's like clips of it on my channel, but it is not the greatest. Uh, but one of the things that I will not take credit for this in terms of creating the in like initializing the idea, but I think I popularized it. I think I popularized the idea of doing mock reviews. So mock
Hmm.
reviews it's as simple as like you review a set. There were set reviews at the time. There were people who reviewed Bionicle sets who were coming out,
Mhm.
and I definitely jumped on the bandwagon with the Kotorian and started reviewing. Like my first actual review scroll, like
Scroll.
Kotorian scroll, and it was like 144p. It was just the worst quality. My voice sounded like I was coming through an AM radio. It was bad news, but it was fun because I wanted I like my thought was like I wanted to give thoughts on these toys.
Mhm.
And so I did that for a while. And at some point I got the idea, why don't I start reviewing stuff I built? And at the time I think I reviewed my stuff like it was like an actual set, like you can go out and buy this, but you can't. Went on, I started to focus more on like, well, here's stuff you can't really see in pictures. Like here's some articulation that you really can't see in some of these pictures. Here's some design philosophies, here's some more insight into the character. And for a while, a lot of people did mock reviews because they were not, I'm not gonna say copying my style, but it was a new idea that no one thought of. Because
Mhm.
like, hey, you I haven't been doing mock reviews recently, so it makes me kind of a hypocrite in that regard. But I'm still a big proponent of if you make something that you really enjoy and you create it in a 3D space, you should show it off in a 3D space. And there are a lot of mockus out there. I'm not pointing out people because I feel like it's so varied that you really can't point out people.
Mhm.
They just take one picture of a build from the front or from one particular angle where it's meant to be seen, basically being 2D art at that point, and never show it from any other angle. And I feel like if you're creating something in a 3D space, you need to show it off in a 3D space. And for me in particular, I want to show off what I did. I want to show my homework. I want to like, here's what I did. Not to the point where it's basically a how-to, even though I'm really not opposed to how-tos. It's just really complicated for me to make them because I
Mhm.
take things apart and then I don't know how to put it back together, ironically. uh, uh, so people started doing mock reviews, and that was really cool to see that. So that's what the videos were like. The community itself, it was a lot of people videos on YouTube, and then people then went to Skype to then talk to a lot of people like one on one, whether it be through text, but otherwise it was a lot of like you got dumped into a lot of like, hey, here's a 50-person group call, go have fun, and it was just a nightmare. But there
Mhm.
were definitely some cliques that formed, enough cliques to where it's like, oh hey, I don't like this person, I don't like this person, and then there was drama with the BioTube flame war, which I will keep this as condensed as possible. It was a bunch of young kids who didn't know how to use the internet and didn't know how to respond to trolls or other people with sarcasm,
Gosh.
and then created sides in which there were spies, and it was so stupid. It was so stupid. It was, and I was like one of the sides in the war. Like, it's either Shadowgear or this other person, Edict Darts. He is not in the community
Eating
anymore. He's
darts.
been gone for so
I
long.
was thinking that because I've heard like snippets of this story, but
Yeah.
oh my
I'd
gosh,
love to know what he's doing nowadays, but I haven't heard from the guy in like 5, 6 years.
I don't think he's been
But
on for years either.
he hasn't. Probably for the best. But it was like you're like, oh, you're gonna stand up for him. Like, it was basically people, fan bases picking sides as to who they thought was the better person, and then you had like the generals and like we're gonna start this whole rebellion. Oh man, and like, oh hey, can I be your friend? And I'm actually, copying these chat logs and sending them to another person. It was, and like I had people call my home multiple times and for multiple days through a fake Skype channel with Skype credit, prank calling my house, and then my family got involved. It
Oh
was
no.
it was bad. It was, and I was like, what? I was young. I was like maybe 15, 16 at the time. It was a lot to explain. But it was kind of toxic for a while. But then as time went on, people grew up and understood how to use the internet. Stupid. And then I said this is stupid, and then the other guy said this was stupid. So we just kind of dropped it. But there were still people who like still had a, I don't know. To be honest with you, a lot of it's kind of a blur. That is the end of it. Like, it was a lot of people, a lot of young kids who don't really know how to interact socially, social, and then taking things out of context, the problem than it had to be. And then as time went
Gosh.
on, things just fizzled out and went out for the better. But even during that controversy, there were still a lot of great times. Like, Ira through all of that. Like, we talked on Skype, and then we've been dating for like dating and now gonna marry hopefully soon, and like for like 8 years.
Goodness gracious.
And I've met, yeah, I know it's very weird because many times we have looked at each other, and mainly her, she would look at me and just be like, "We met on BioTube," and I'm like, "Is that weird?" It's like, yeah, it's weird. That's so weird to say. No one can say that. It's so, oh man. And there are definitely other people from that community that like we're still somewhat in touch with. One of them is on the Gearbox a lot. No one likes him, which I don't blame people.
Oh gosh.
But such a weird time to think about because I feel like I'm not in the BioTube community all that much now, but I feel like it's nowhere near as big as it used to be. And I think primarily that's because it's I forget the word for it, but like there's so many other social media now that people go on to. It's not like, oh, you either have BZP, Bionicle, or like BioTube, or like mock pages. Now it's like you have Instagram and you have the TTV message boards or BZ Power, or like you have all these other outlets that you can go on to share your stuff and form these other cliques.
Mhm.
And I feel like that many videos anymore. I could be totally wrong because I don't poke my head in that door all that often anymore, but I don't feel like I don't hear a lot about it that much.
Mhm.
So I feel like, oh, because like in 2012, the story on the podcast before, but my original Shadowgear6335 account, I think it may still be up because I brought it back somehow, but it got hacked and taken down. Subscribers, I had like monetization at the time when it was really hard to get it at the time.
Mhm.
And it was gone. All the videos were gone. I had some saved, but a lot of them were gone. And what really happened was, I found out years later, Elira was the one who deleted it for the goodest reason possible.
Oh,
It was she deleted it because the community would grow so toxic. It was actively interfering with my life and my mental state at that
wow.
point. So I'm very thankful she did that to this day. But it's a testament to be like, wow, I let this. Like, granted, it could have been that bad. It could not have been, like, what they can handle. And for me at the time, it was just really bad. So I got away from the community, made a new account, which is my current account, which is Clockwork Tempest, even though I renamed it to Shadowgear, which is weird. I'm posting videos on and off, and it hasn't been much of a focus for me anymore. But it's still nice to be able to have that outlet out there, to have that platform, a community based around it anymore.
Huh. Wow.
And now I take a breath.
No kidding. Okay, that was the history lesson I was hoping for. My gosh, there's a lot to unpack there.
Only one side, my friend. There,
Oh
there
yeah.
are there are a lot of other people that you could interview on the show who could give you other perspectives. Although I don't know who'd be willing to remember or talk about it. I'm not too sure.
I'd love to get a hold of them. That's fascinating because obviously I was not involved in that, but I can almost kind of understand because stuff like that would happen, on BC Power. There'd be people who would argue and be against each other, and those who would take sides, and kind of around the same time frame. And obviously you look back, it's like, what the heck? This is so dumb. At the time, you're part of this community, you're trying to interact, and all these things are happening. It's like, oh great, now it's all kind of crumbling down. But gosh, calling your house, that crosses a line.
Well, it was like they would call my house, and it was from a Skype call of like maybe like 6, 7 people, and it's like you hear it, you pick up the phone, it's like, who is this? And either they're silent or they're just making jokes, and then you find out later it's like, oh hey, the guy that had the Skype credit was like this 10-year-old kid who was convinced by another person who didn't like me to then use up their Skype credit, which ended up being their parents' credit, to call my house multiple times from a different country just to prank call me and troll me.
Oh my gosh.
That is insane. That was 2010 in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Those are crazy times.
Boy, I really love how Discord does not have that feature. Maybe it will at one point, but I'm glad it doesn't right now.
Same here, my friend.
Honestly, real quick, Discord is just it's so much better than Skype, especially after Skype got snatched by Microsoft. Like I know only the big evil corporate, they took this tiny thing and now it's bad, but I don't say that very often, but I will absolutely 100% say that for Skype. Skype sucked so much after Microsoft got a hold of it, and I hope Discord doesn't fall in that trap.
So, as someone who still uses Skype daily, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I feel like for recording, we recorded our last podcast, the Gearbox podcast, on Discord, and it worked out totally fine. Like the quality, because I'll record everything natively through my computer, and then I go through and I'm like, wow, the audio quality is a lot better. Like this is great. But like in terms of using Skype daily for like to talking to other people, I still think it's okay. I think Discord is better, but like we just haven't made the transition over yet.
That's understandable. Like
Yeah, I don't know.
I can perfectly relate to that. I feel maybe for casual conversation, it's at least tolerable. I prefer
for Skype
Discord, but yeah.
Yeah, Skype for me is the friend you don't want to leave because if you left them, they'd be all alone. So you just still kind of like be with them. It's like, hey man, I'm still here. It's okay. You want to go like get a pizza?
Yeah.
A bad way to put it, but it's the best way I can describe it.
That's okay. I can understand where you're coming from. I might have abandoned Skype. I know like a couple people who still use it, and it's like, okay, I'll boot it up like once, twice a week maybe. But that's really fascinating. Outside of back to BioTube, of course.
Yes.
So that it's kind of funny because I was introduced to you through Meso because he's a huge fan of yours, and he showed me.
I
your
don't understand
reviews.
why my stuff is bad.
Are you kidding me? He showed me your reviews, and I thought they were hysterical.
Like, which reviews did you watch?
Oh gosh, I remember
Were they the GT ones?
Dragon Bolt from Hero Factory.
Oh, that was
that
was alright.
Yellow Fish guy from Hero Factory. It was definitely your Hero Factory reviews. And
Yeah, that was around the time when I came back, and I'm just like, I feel like that was the time when I honestly I woke up one morning and I'm like, I feel like doing reviews again, and I wanted to make them funny, and so I did very little of them, but I did a couple, and I think looking back, those are the ones I'm the most proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up doing more of those style reviews when the G2 sets came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I stopped and just went back to doing regular reviews because I'm just like, it's hard to write these, and I have a lot of other stuff going on in my life, so it's like, I don't know. Although my pinnacle funniest joke to this day is still like YouTube Pahatu, what is it? Not Uniter. Vendor? What is it?
Master.
Master. Pahatu Master Stone. I would flick off his mask and have his mask fly into space and like take down a helicopter down into a fireball. That's my best joke. That's all I got. And there was commentary on how loose those masks were when you hit the brain.
Yeah.
And they just fly right off.
Oh, yeah. Way worse than 2001's masks. And I thought those were bad when I was young. It's like, no, the mask came off. But, boy, I would have lost masks if I were a kid when G2 came out.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. That actually brings me to a couple of just general questions. And these are kind of rapid fire.
Hit me.
Getting the Bionicle and whatnot. Do you have a favorite set? Your least favorite set?
Okay. What set is Onuamata.
Okay.
My favorite Titan set is Nadiki.
Ooh.
My favorite villain set is either... It's like Toa size. It's either Takadox or it's Vampra.
Okay. Not bad. Not bad.
My favorite overall set, if I gotta think about it. Oh man.
You have like maybe a favorite system set even?
System set not so much. I mean, like every time someone asks me my favorite system set, I always default to there was an Alpha Team set. It was my first Lego set I ever got in stores. It was an Alpha Team set where it was like a submarine, so a truck with a hook winch, and the hook winch would carry the submarine up from the water and then carry it on its back. That's my favorite system set because it was my first, which I feel like it's a cop-out answer.
Nah, that's fine.
I'm going to say my favorite Bionicle set is either Onuamata.
You might have cut out there. Onumata or
the Exotoa.
Oh, the Exotoa. Interesting. Exotoa is an interesting answer. I can kind of understand though. It's kind of funny that you have those two because Onuamata cannot fit naturally in the Exotoa because of his head construction.
Well, good thing it's Lego.
Exactly. Just, give him a neck. An actual neck, not like the thing he has. Okay, interesting. Let's go ahead. We're going to kind of coming toward the end-ish here, so let's go ahead and go to Twitter. There are a few questions we have there. And to anyone listening live, do keep in mind you can send your questions in at the Eljay Johnsen. Use the hashtag the Eljay Johnsen Show. All right, so we have two questions. One of them's from let me see, Ali Ra. Ali Ra asks, here's a question for you and the guest. Opinions on pineapple pizza.
So I've never, first of all, I don't like your username. It's very hard to pronounce. Second of all, I've never had pineapple pizza, although I'm not opposed to it. My whole thing is like, I have a hard time understanding what, like, here's my thing. I talked about this recently on another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am a picky eater, but with time I've gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
Like fruits. I love a lot of foods. Here's the thing, though. Do not put veggies in my burger. Do not put anything that shouldn't be on a pizza, which is like, okay, you only put meats on pizza. Only meats. Veggies on it. Don't put healthy stuff on my unhealthy food because it's not going to help that much. Don't put there's no point. Put it on the side. I wouldn't mind having it on the side to some degree. It's like, listen, pineapple is such a strong taste that I don't know how that would mix with just like the saucy, cheesy, just like mozzarella and pineapple. I can't imagine mixing well together. But you know what? People dig it. It must be good, so I'd be willing to try it. Just don't understand it.
Okay. That's a very interesting answer because you see, for me, pineapple pizza is probably my favorite type of pizza.
Really?
Yes. I really... Close runner-up is meat lovers, of course. Because you're definitely not wrong. Meat belongs on pizza. It's a prerequisite.
Yes.
And I feel that for me, pineapple, because I'm a big fan of sweet and sour. Like sweet and sour anything. Sweet and sour pork is I will take that any day. And so it kind of follows that same principle because you have the cheese and you have the tomato sauce and you've got the spices associated with that. And then you have the pineapple and it's very sweet and it's kind of a contrast to all the other spices and flavors that usually go on a pizza. And so I feel that those two things kind of balance each other out, and the pineapple doesn't usually overpower everything else.
Good.
So it feels it tastes somewhat exotic, almost. Just kind of out there and different, and they don't clash to such a degree where it's unpalatable, palpable. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely an acquired taste, but I've acquired it and I quite enjoy it.
I'd be interested in trying it. Maybe I should talk to this Alora person to see if they
Yeah.
can get me some pineapple pizza. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they would be more than willing to help introduce you to the large and expansive landscape that is pineapple pizza.
You are putting it on a pedestal in which that makes me feel like I'd maybe be disappointed afterwards.
Okay, yeah.
I am blaming you for this. You
When
know
I-
very well, if I were to eat pineapple pizza, I'm then going to tweet you. Help me.
Okay. I when I was with TTV, I may have accidentally done that with Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So
Oh no.
let me rephrase that. I think that you might enjoy pizza that has pineapple on it. I think it's good.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
But we can both agree meat lovers is just it's just, oh gosh.
I enjoy having meat in my mouth. Next question.
Okay, we do have another question. This is from Bionic Kasai. His question is, do you have any plans on being more active in BioTube again?
Really talked about this. But so as of this year, I've been putting out the podcast. For those who don't know, I host a podcast with Elira called the Gearbox Podcast. It is just a podcast which we talk about Lego and other things we enjoy. It's very freeform, no schedule. It's very fun.
Yeah.
That's all I've been really doing because it's all I've really been enjoying putting together as of late. Myself, I would do more is doing mock reviews, and I have not been doing them a lot as of late because generally I haven't had much of an urge to do so. Either I have like stuff in my life going on, or I want to focus on other things, or like even now when I have time to do it, I'm sick. I really don't have much of a voice to do it, despite the fact I'm talking so much. Ironically, there's a discretion there. Answer is I don't know. It's something I would be interested in doing, but like I don't really feel like making stop motions anymore. I don't really feel like doing slideshows because it's not really that useful anymore. And finding non-copyrighted music, while it's not a bother, it's hard to find music I like that fits a character. And it's also, I went to school for video production and audio production. So like this is in my wheelhouse. But at the same time, I don't really feel like making videos on a lot of stuff at the moment. When I get the urge to, like I recently put up a review of Tempest, which is the large like mecha I brought to Brick Fair, Virginia, 2017.
Okay,
And I
yeah,
put a
that's the
good
one
long
on
review
screen.
on that. Screen, awesome. I put up a review of that because I felt like I had to because I worked on the mock for so long. But it's like I still have like maybe a dozen mocks I haven't reviewed yet. Doing those, I just haven't had much of an urge to do it. I'm not saying I'll never have the urge to do it. I'm just saying at the moment I don't. I just enjoy putting out the podcast because that's what I get the most satisfaction out of right now.
That's
So I guess if you want more stuff to come around, just hang out for the time being. And maybe there'll be some more reviews coming your way. I don't know. But for the time being, there will definitely be more podcasts be coming up so long as I can organize them properly.
Yeah, I can definitely confirm the freeform nature of the Gearbox, and I can also heavily endorse and confirm the fun factor of the Gearbox podcast. It is definitely a good time had by all.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is understandable, and that is a pretty good answer. We do have, I think, one more question here. This is from Warrior Studios. Do you like the song Pen, Pineapple, Apple, Pen?
So Okay, so I get that it's a meme. I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm sure someone's behind this. I don't understand funny outside of here's a foreign man just doing a silly dance talking about pineapple, apple pen. I get it. It's a meme, but it's like I don't find it funny. But at the same time, it's like how I'm more so I feel like there are times. Okay, look, in my eyes, I'm still very young.
Hmm.
Here's the thing: there are many times when I look at the internet and I see memes come up or just something in from like my generation or my culture that I see come up, and I'm like, I feel like an old man. Like, what is this? Why do people like this? It's like, okay, look, like here, like we are number one. Okay, that's a good meme. Sure, whatever. Oh, now we have pineapple apple pen man. It's like, okay, where is the Congress that decided that this would be the meme of the month? Like who I didn't vote for this governor. Who is this?
Yeah, I can kind of
My answer
agree.
is I don't understand it.
No, I can kind of agree here. I think I get a little more enjoyment out of people's enjoyment of memes than I do actually do some of them that pop up.
Yes.
Granted, there are a few exceptions because the way that the "We Are Number One" meme kind of grew, like every time he says number one, it's Bionicle or something like that. I did find that very fascinating and really funny to watch grow. Or the B movie script. I got a kick out of that.
Oh yeah.
But
Every time he says one, he just screams Takua. Just every time. That is one meme I will never get tired of.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, heck, there are even like memes that come out of the Bionicle community, and like there's a Facebook group. I'm not a part of it because I don't have an account, of course. But mask posting,
It's great. Hmm.
they have a lot of really funny stuff that comes out of there, and it's very fascinating. But I know what you mean. You are kind of young, aren't you? Like you're
Well,
just
yeah, I think.
still.
Am I older than you? I don't know. How old are you?
I'm like in the realm of 100. That age. Um,
Man, you look good for someone who's like in the realm of 100.
Thank you. Yeah, I try. You know, my hair is still, it's got a lot of volume, so we're good. But
True.
full disclosure, I think I'm not sure actually. We'll have to talk. Like I don't have my age out there, so I'll have to talk to you about that after the show because I'm not sure which of us
All
is
right.
older.
Well, who's older? You, the being that creates the being that is yourself, or the mask that which you wear? Which came first?
Oh gosh, that's a whole nother discussion. Oh my goodness. Um. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up in just a moment here. We have one more question. This is from
Okay.
Ollie Linus, and he says he's gonna ask this for every guest. What's your favorite Toa,
Okay.
mask, and year? G2 counts.
Ooh. Favorite Toa in terms of build or character?
Ooh. Oh, nuts! You didn't specify. All right, Ollie, you have like 5 minutes to respond to that. Favorite Toa in
No,
terms of.
I'll give an answer to both.
Okay, that's
In
fair.
the event that he does not respond. Character. Uh, uh, Only basing it off the movies because I never read any of the comics.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Oh,
I like
goodness.
Lego because they're toys, not because they're movies or comics.
Fair enough.
Uh, I'm gonna say Matt Towell from the second Bionicle movie, just because I love how stupid he is. Um, of like build and toy, I'm gonna still say Onuamata. My favorite mask in terms of design has to be either the G2 Miru or Vakama Taraga's mask.
Oh, the Huna.
Old.
Interesting.
The Huna, that's right. Yeah.
Sorry.
And favorite year. And favorite year I think is either 2003 or 2007.
Okay, not bad options. 2007 is a very difficult year to beat. I think the story is just
Yeah.
and then the sets, of course. Okay, no, excellent. I think that says it all. Let me see. We got a few more minutes here. So I will ask you a few more very small questions, of course. Um, Mocks. I noticed
Yes.
that you've been posting some more mocks, and a lot of them are kind of non-humanoid. Which is easier for you to build, humanoid mocks or non-humanoid mocks?
Humanoids for sure. The couple non-humanoids I built recently were mostly experiments to not build with humanoids because that's mostly what I build with.
Hmm.
More commonly known that like people just say like, oh, you keep building dudes. Shadowgear just keeps building dudes, and then I made a giant centipede, and people are like, oh well, dudes. Uh, Mainly the easiest thing for me to build, mostly because like for most people, I believe, because like we're humanoids, so it's hard for us to it's hard. It's well, not hard. It's easy for us to understand that anatomy.
Of course, yeah,
Uh, Ahi or an animal or anything outside of that as easily, nowhere near. It's a lot more planning in that regard.
it's understandable. I figure I asked this to Elira when I had her on, and I'm interested to gather your take on it too. Feel free to cringe or groan when I mention this. Female mocks.
Uh,
Um, that's always basically just a container of boiling hot water, and somebody is waiting to stick their hand into it. So, where do you land on that? What do you think about the discussion that often, by discussion I mean arguments, that often surround female mocks, and what are your thoughts?
I love that you saved this for the end of the show.
Yeah, no, I
Uh,
keep on. I did that last time too. It's totally accidental.
so generally, my philosophy is just build what you want and just take criticism as you go and like kind of take down what you can. I feel like you should be able to build any style of female mock that you want. It could be like subtly looking like a female. It could have giant, exaggerated proportions. Regardless, like people should build what they want. And I feel like when you bring in the thing of like, this is what a woman actually looks like, and here's like an anatomy chart of like, this is what a woman is. It's like, come on, like we don't have to build everything to a T. Again, we're all hobbyists here. Like we're just building stuff that we enjoy, and if you don't like it, you can just keep scrolling or click away. Like it's end of the day, the mockist who builds the mock is the most important person. If they enjoy building it, then they should keep building what they want to build. If they're like actually harassing people over what they build and saying like you're wrong, whatever, and like if you're handling it in that like toxic like negative format, then that's a different conversation.
Hmm.
But if you're just building stuff, posting and just being like, hey, this is what I build, and you guys are being silly, then I think that philosophy is totally okay. So long as you're not harming others, then to each his own.
Yep. I think that's a particularly fair answer. I I can't help but laugh when you mentioned the anatomy charts and like people
Oh, that's
saying,
happened to me.
"Oh
I
my
built
gosh,
something like
has
that
it?"
with exaggerated proportions, and there was
Oh,
someone there was a luminary of the community who was like, listen, you need to. This is what a woman actually looks like. You should like bring down the chest size and make sure their hips aren't exaggerated and long and make sure their arms are the right length. And I'm like, dude, just thanks for no make like stuff like that makes me not want to interact with the community whatsoever. I'm just like, oh come on,
yeah,
this.
no. Like I told Elira, it was always a headache every time because when I moderated the TTV message boards, that would crop up every now and then, and almost every single time it'd be the same thing. It's like, oh, this doesn't look anything like a woman. What are you doing? Here's an anatomy chart. You should like the proportions are way off. What the heck is going on here? Do you even know how to mock? This offends me to such a grievous extent. It's like, oh boy, time to dole out the suspensions.
That's a whole other conversation that I'm not sure is actually appropriate for this show.
Unfortunately, not, but it is fascinating nonetheless, and I appreciate
Yes,
your thoughts on it.
of course.
Okay, well, it's about time. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. Brendan, it has been so much fun. I always enjoy talking to you.
Always a pleasure.
Where can people locate you on social media? I'm going to find a better way to word this in due time, but for now, that is the gist of my question.
So the best way that you can find me is to stick your head out a window and scream as loud as you can my name, and I will hopefully show up. But if you can't do that and that doesn't work, type in Shadowgear6335 into the internet, and you will most likely find the accounts that I have. The ones I'm most active on are Instagram and Twitter. Usually on Twitter, I post stuff that I build. Same thing with Instagram, and I try and post hot comments whenever I can. Other than that, you can find me at Clockwork Tempest on YouTube, which will end up, if you search Shadowgear6335, you will find that YouTube channel regardless. And that is where I host the Gearbox Podcast. Again, a podcast in which I host with Elira. And it's a very fun time. If again, it's maybe beyond PG-13 at times. There's a couple episodes that are a little bit bad, especially ones that dwell more into topics about female mocks, which there's an episode for that if you're interested.
Oh, gosh.
But yeah, it's a very laid back, very show, and people dig it. I'm glad people do. It's definitely filling in a gap of other Lego podcasts that I feel like I don't see. So it's great.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and I have other social media that you can find if you're more accustomed to that, and I still use those. But if you want to find the main ones that I use,
okay, I will have those in the description, as many of them as I can, like, put in there. So go ahead and scroll down, and you should see them there. And go ahead and check that out. Again, Gearbox Podcast is a good kickback time, but if you're more, if there are sensitive ears in the house, definitely keep that in mind. But of course,
go to those. Yeah,
oh, yeah. All right. Well, once again, thank you for being on. I'd love to have you on again. If you we can schedule it out. Maybe you can come back.
I don't want to talk to you ever again. This was the worst show ever. I felt very offended, and I have to pee because of you. And I'm blaming my urination practices on your existence.
What? Okay, the fact that I have a glass of water has nothing to do with you. That's some good water. Well, in that case,
I would love to be on the show again. This has been a good time.
Oh, thank you. I need this. I need your name, and I need the publicity, man. I'm struggling here. No, but no, it'd be fun to have you on again, and maybe we can talk about other food.
I could talk to you about food. I could talk to you about most things, and if I don't understand things, I will ask you questions until I am satisfied. That's the best way to have conversations.
That's usually how people learn, is they ask questions until they're satisfied with the answers.
Yes. Where do babies come from? Find out on the next episode of the Gearbox Podcast. Boom.
And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you all very much for listening, be it live or afterwards when the recording goes up. It should be up on the same day. Once again, the Eljay Johnsen Show airs every Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure to tune in then. You can send your questions at ljjohnson@gmail.com, either for myself or my next guest, and guest announcements are made on Twitter at the Eljay Johnsen. Go check that out. It is a fun time had by all. So thank you all so very much for listening. Brendan, once again, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
And we will see you all again another time. Have a great day.